Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of the Napcast. Once again, I am Math Geek, or Krill, or Tim, whatever you want to call me, and I once again have my lovely co-host Anders here. Say hello.
Yep. Hey guys, what's up? Back again for another week.
Exciting stuff. We've got some interesting things to go through this week. Most importantly, there was one big thing people have been talking about in the last little bit that wasn't nature's, because we covered nature's last week, but the other big thing has been ingredients. There's a lot of interesting things that have come around recently when it comes to ingredients and recipes and all that, and I thought there'd be a good idea for us to tackle what we know in ingredients at the moment and talk a little bit about our perspective on meta ingredients, about what recipes you should be looking into, things like that. So basically what I wanted to start off by talking about was recipes and how they work in general, just kind of flatly.
So I know a lot of people ask me, and probably ask you too, Krill, about recipes or like what should I use for my box, what team should I make, all that stuff. And I know it's a hot topic that a lot of people are curious about.
It's very difficult to quantify as well, because there's a lot of axes that you can use to judge how good recipes are and how good different ingredients are. A good example of this is if you're looking at what's a good example? At bean sausage, for example. Bean sausage is a really interesting ingredient because there is the bean burger curry, which you can make with just sausage on the curry week, and then you can also make bean ham salad, which is just bean sausage on the salad week, which makes bean sausage a really good ingredient. However, on desserts drinks weeks, there are literally no recipes that use bean sausage. It is completely void. So there's a lot of different...
There's a bunch of little nuances like that everywhere. We're going to get to it later, but like Top Hollow doesn't have easy access to milk. So even though you may have... so you may end up wanting to use like your Squirtle there, which is not favored berry, and it gets a little messy. So we'll be tackling a lot of that discussions this session, I think.
The first thing I want to talk about was the actual calculation behind formulas, though.
Yeah, let's do that.
So the way that I will simplify this is that recipes are divided into tiers based on how many ingredients are necessary to make them. Basically, if there's like the mixed whatever that isn't actually a recipe and it just has no mandatory ingredients, and then from then on there are recipes that require between 1 and 10 ingredients, then 11 and 20, and then 21 to 30, 31 to 40, and then more than 40 is the groups. And depending on which tier they're in, so basically what tens digit the number of mandatory ingredients is, it'll tell you how good the recipe is. The more ingredients, the better. If you have no ingredients necessary, there is no benefit. The mixed juice is just the ingredient value, and that's it. Each ingredient has its own independent value. It'll just add them all together and say, there you go, that is your recipe.
Yeah, you really, really do not want to go for mixed juice or mixed anything. The mixed meals are pretty bad value once you actually compare them to dishes. Even like the 6-ingredient ones are vastly superior.
Yeah, but for example, like right beyond that, if you're between 0 and 10 ingredients, then you just, at level 1, you just have a flat 6% bonus to all of the ingredients you use in there. All the ingredients that are part of the recipe itself. If you go over the recipe, none of those ingredients will get benefits, but all of the actual ingredients you put in for the recipe will get that 6% bonus. And that is considered like the base of the recipe. It's 6% more than all the other ingredients that you used before. So a good example of this is the fancy apple juice uses 8 apples. So the fancy apple is 90 points each. 90 times 8 is 720. Add 6% on that, and you get 763. That is the base of that recipe. And then, every level then on, you gain a little bit more, percentage-wise onto it, until eventually you get to level 50, which I believe is the highest they can go. And it's like 2.5 times the
ingredient
ingredient value. Like you gain an additional 1.5 times the ingredient value when you get to the end. That's ridiculous. That eventually you can have a point where instead of doing 720, you're getting to like, what would that be? Like 15.
14, 15.
14. It'd be like 2,000. Yeah, it would be like 1,700, give or take.
Oh,
which is ridiculous.
That's better. That's higher than I thought.
Yeah, because it's 2.5 times. It's 2.5 times the base recipe.
Yeah.
So it'll be 763. 763 times 2.5 is 1,900. Actually, it's 1,900.
Oh, even higher. All right. Yeah, it's a lot of value.
It really is.
I forget. Could you clue me in for the ingredients that you put in after like the mandatory amount? Like you need your 8 apples. Do those also get the bonuses from leveling up the dish?
So they do not. What they do get though is the bonus that your island gives. So if you've visited an island and you've done it there for a while, every week you stay at an island, it'll increase the amount of strength you can get there by 5%. So it becomes 5, 10, 15.
If I have 10% on green grass, every apple that I throw in the dish is actually giving me 99 points, not 90 points.
Yeah, if you have plus 10%, yes. But then also there's the whole bonus about the recipes as well. They also get the plus 10%.
Okay.
Or plus
so
100%.
If you actually get to those higher level dishes, let's even say like 30, and then you throw on, let's say 15, 20% from the island or more, it starts to really add up.
It really does. And it's multiplicative as well. So you really want to be able to focus onto big recipes. Just for simplicity, just to rattle through all of them, if you're between 1 and 10, you get 6% more. If you're between 10 and 20, it's 11%. 20 and 30 is 17%. 30 and 40 is 25%. And then above 40 is 35%. And that is how they're structured as the base. And
then they only go up from there.
Yeah, they only go up from there, up to about 2.5 times the base value. I would explain how they work every level. Like, you can figure out a couple of them, but unfortunately, the leveling is kind of inconsistent. It levels you up between 1 and 3% every level, but it's not like a consistent, easy thing to be able to map. It's a little bit all over the place. Like, I thought that there'd be like an easy formula to be able to figure it out, but there just isn't. And I've proven that there isn't just a nice formula for it, which is a real pain in the ass, but...
It'd probably be more than what's worth doing a podcast episode on, unless people really try for it.
Basically, you could get an idea that it's like something like an average of 1.5%, what would it be? Well, if it's going to bump from 100 to 250, you're getting a 150% over 50 levels. It'll average out to 3% over the course of everything. It starts with lower percent and then goes to higher percent the later level you are. That's the simple of it. That is how recipes work in short. I could give a bunch of other examples, but I think that's something we can come back to later.
Most of the questions people have about should I go for recipes? Should I go for higher level recipes? I think that covers most of it.
Yeah, I have gotten into a lot of arguments about these.
If you can bake those bigger recipes, you probably should, just because of those increased.
Yeah, exactly. Bigger recipes will provide you not only just a bigger pool of ingredients that are going to be multiplied upon, but the multiply upon, like the actual multiplier, is bigger for bigger recipes as well. Yeah. So it's like you're getting the value squared on top of it. It's a really nice...
Yeah, it gets exponentially better as you...
Quadratically, yeah. I've gotten into a handful of arguments about recipes and things like that, because the game doesn't actually have these formulas baked into it. They just have all the values hard-coded, which is stupid, but they do. But this is a perfect lineup of everything. So I guess they have something that generates the values, and they just stick it in the game for whatever reason. After. Exactly. They probably just copy the results and pop them in. I've had arguments with people about like EXP and about recipe values and about ingredient values, because actually the game has them hard coded. They're not there's no formula for them.
It's just written in.
Yeah, exactly. It's just that it happily be manually written in the game.
Yeah.
So with that, now that we have a basic idea of how recipes are done,
try to contextualize them into the islands we have.
Yeah, I think we can also talk a bit about, before we do that directly, I think we should talk a little bit about how ingredients are, how ingredients are gathered. Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that.
So, feel free to take the lead on this one if you'd like. It's, I think you know enough about this.
I mean, so people know that ingredient specialists get 2 ingredients a pop. Berry specialists and skill specialists get 1 a pop. You get about 20 to 30% of your drops to be ingredients before you have other modifiers like nature and skills on top of that. So you can expect about a third of your pulls to be ingredients, maybe a little bit less, but about a third.
Yeah, that's reasonable. And then there's also like ingredient magnet S abilities that can also drop a bunch
those
of
are
ingredients.
amazing. I will stand by those skills being absolute amazing. Not only because ingredients scale with value with like your islands and everything, but they scale with the dishes, they scale with the islands. They're generally worth more than berries. Like they're a really good thing to just get a set chunk of off of a skill proc. Ingredient Finder is a pretty good skill.
So yeah, when we look at like other abilities that directly give strength, this one indirectly gives strength, but it gives it directly enough that we can use that as a comparison. Like if you're talking about charge strength as an example, ingredient magnet outpaces charge strength, but not directly. Because if you just look at just the ingredients absent of recipes, it doesn't outpace at any level.
Yeah.
But when you factor into the fact that this can go into even like a low-end recipe at a moderate level, you'll realize that it starts to pace into a lot more value. Ingredient Magnet S giving you 6 at level 1, for example. The average-ish is about 110 per ingredient. So you're getting like 660 as a base, which is a decent amount.
Higher than like the charge strength S. I will say in favor of the charge strength skills, they also scale with islands. Just ingredient magnet is ingredient magnet is a better skill. Because like as you said, the average is 110. But even like outside of that, even if you low rolled, let's just say you got 6 apples and that's 540, that's already better than charge strength S at base. Exactly. And on top of the island bonus, you're also getting the dish bonus as well.
Exactly. So yeah, I think that now at this point we can start contextualizing by island. As most people are aware, Greengrass Isle every week will randomize, truly randomly to our knowledge, which island which favorite berries you have.
Yeah.
It is just
a big thing with Greengrass, I will say, is that a point in favor of ingredient finding Pokemon ingredient specialists is that more of their value is weighted into ingredients and not berries. It makes them more safe on Greengrass. If you didn't roll their specific berry that week, you're not going to get hit as hard as say your Butterfree will.
Exactly. If you have if you have a Lumberry Butterfree, because Butterfree is
still a good Pokemon, but
if it's not the right berry for the week, you're going to be losing a lot of value off of your specialty. You'd rather get something that you could generally apply on a wide variety of weeks. This is one of the reasons why we mentioned bean sausage before, because although it's a good ingredient, there is 1/3 of the weeks where you end up getting the desserts where it ends up being really painful.
Yeah, it's kind of generic, doesn't do much. It just fills out your pot space, but it doesn't.
It doesn't help you towards recipes. Yeah.
But what was I gonna say? But yeah, so if you have berry specialist like Mankey, like Butterfree, I don't know. There's others, Rattata. I'm trying to think of a lot of the more generic-y ones. Yeah. They will end up being outpaced pretty hard on not favored weeks, whereas something like a Squirtle, Charmander, Bulbasaur, a Diglett, the ingredient specialist Pokemon are not going to be losing value very fast. Like even a Krogunk, which most people don't think is like that great, he will still outperform the other random Berrymons if neither of them are favored.
Like there is also like a thing that can be said about like frequency, where like if you have a Berrymon that has a decent berry and a really low frequency and maybe some good sub skills, it's still gonna be good. Like it's
Raichu.
like Raichu, like Jolteon, like Gengar,
Typhlosion.
The ones that are just really good. Typhlosion. I have a berry seeking Typhlosion. I'm trying to get to level 5. God, I'm so close to it. I'm like 23 right now. If I get to 25, then it gets the berry finder, and it'll just be one of my permanent mons for a good long
because even if it's not favored, you're still gonna gather Ginger at an incredible pace, even if it's only one at a time, just because it has such a crazy frequency.
Yeah, exactly.
There's that, and also, just because of that low frequency, even if the berries aren't worth a lot, you're still gathering a lot of them and stuff. And with Berry Finder, that kind of Pokemon is going to be good in general, just because of the high frequency plus factoring into the ingredients and the Berry Finder on top of that.
Exactly.
So he's more of a generically good one, and then it's going to demolish top whatever you're on top.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm focusing on top, so I hope that by the end of this week I'll be able to get it. But we'll see.
Yeah.
Anyways, now that we've talked about green grass a little bit, and that it kind of depends week by week, depending on everything. There's a lot of factors you can go into, but I think that the real meat and potatoes of our discussion can really focus in on specific islands. Yeah. Because they will always have the same. Yeah, exactly. They're always going to have the exact same favored berries, which means we can take a look at all the mons that have favored berries and use that as an example. Basically, if you're on Cyan Beach, you can go with water type mons, flying type mons, or fairy type mons, which restricts you to about 30-ish mons, 25, 30 mons. And they are only going to have a limited amount of ingredients. Not every favored berry mon is going to be covered by the favored berry that week. In fact, every island has a limited amount of ingredients accessible. And on top of that, you can only choose 5 mons to bring with you at any point. So if you are lacking a certain ingredient and you want a certain ingredient that isn't on this list, you absolutely have to run away from the favored berry. So I've just compiled a little list here for us to go through of different recipes that use only ingredients that come from favored berry mons. And if you want to break away for any of the other ingredients, you can do so, but it would require you to choose a different mon, right?
Yeah, it would require you to choose a different mon. You're going to have to actually sit down and go, okay, I would like to make X or Y meal. Let me pull somebody on the team for that. So exactly. If you're struggling to make salad with Squirtle, on Cyan you can do Squirtle plus Totodile to make the milk and bean sausage salad. But let's say you don't have Totodiles, you'd have to go, okay, I need to add a Charmander to my squad in order to hit that salad. Something like that.
Yep. So, firstly, I'm going to quickly open up my list here, and I'm going to select all the different ingredients that can be acquired in just that week. So, look, if we start with Cyan Beach, so we're surprisingly limited in ingredients with Cyan Beach. If we're talking pre-30 here, because we're at a point right now where we're not really reaching 30 at a reasonable pace. Yeah. So as such, I don't think it's reasonable to include recipes with Slowbro tails, right? Or Slowpoke tails.
Yeah. For Cyan, it is interesting. Like you said, we're kind of limited, but it's consistent. You can consistently make the really weak dishes on Cyan easily.
Yeah.
But it's hard to really break out of that and make anything bigger. It's not too much of a problem on the island, but it is a little bit hampering if you're trying to do anything extra, basically.
So what's very funny... Sorry, I yawned about that. But yeah, so what's funny is if you're looking at Cyan, the bigger weak ingredients, Oh my god, how am I saying this? If you want to have the highest possible strength return out of your recipes, then you want to get desserts. Desserts allow you to do milk, honey, cacao, plus soybeans, and you can get a bunch of different recipes. You have sweet scent chocolate cake if you go with milk, honey, and cacao. If you don't get enough of the other two, you can just put in honey, or you can just put in milk, and then you can get the craft soda pop or warm moo moo milk. You can also go into soybeans with oil, and then you can get the Cloud9 soy cake, soybeans, and cacao. Gets you the Hustle protein shake. There's a bunch of options. Bean sausage doesn't help you at all on desserts, but all 5 of those ingredients are all going to be decently accessible, all just good generally on dessert week. However,
it's a hard one for Cyan because there's so much diversity and a lot of little things. So it is really nice though that you're able to have these fallback dishes when you're shooting for these big ones. Squirtle will always be able to make you that warm milk drink.
If you really want to go with honey, you can go with the Jigglypuff line, which people are talking about being way better because we have a better understanding of how energy works and how...
You could always bring in a Bulbasaur off-island if you're desperate, but on-island, Jigglypuff is the honey Pokemon.
Yeah, And because of energy for everyone, it looks like it's going to be a decent skill. It's got an okay carrying capacity. If you level it up from an Iggly buff, it's going to be like 23, which is a pretty decent capacity, all things considered. And then the big recipe you're probably going to be aiming for is sweet sun chocolate cake. Yeah, for dessert if you're on Cyan, because then if you don't get enough cacao through whatever reason, because really there's a couple mons that make cacao, but they're both kind of crap.
They don't gather very fast. Yeah, it's Psyduck and Slowpoke. They don't gather very fast. They do give you cacao, which is honestly a pretty great ingredient, just straight value wise. But they don't gather very fast, and especially Slowpoke is kind of undesirable outside of the cacao.
Exactly, but because they have cacao, there's something you kind of have to think about and consider. Because they can be decent. Like Slowbro Slowking is the better one, right?
Yeah, Slowking is better than Slowbro.
So Slowking has a frequency of like 56 minutes. That's really slow. Like very, very slow. One of the slowest ones in the game, actually, for fully evolved Mons. But because that it is, because it's slightly better than Golduck, which is the exact same frequency, but has
Golduck's 5640.
Actually, Golduck does have a better ability. Yeah,
I kind of prefer Golduck personally, since I'm a fan of spamming the charge strength. But it's
hard.
It's mostly just because it's hard to gauge how good the energy is from Slowking.
The reason why I brought up Slowking wasn't because of the ability, but because once you get to level 30, you can unlock Slowpoke Tails, which is going to be really big, but that's that's a later thing to consider as well. It's very relevant, but it's also a ways away before you get there.
Yeah, even if you're not interested in using Slowking long term, it's not the worst idea to go, okay, I'm gonna shoot for our chocolate cake dessert, and then when it hits level 30, I'm gonna get Slowpoke Tails, and then I'm gonna dump him long term.
Now, on the other hand, if you really don't like having to use either of those mons, but you're on a curry week, you're feeling a lot better. Because curry, you only really need 2 ingredients. You don't even really need to bring an Iggly buff for honey, even though there is mild honey curry you could just build with honey. You really only need milk and sausage. And they are plentiful enough with the Squirtle line and evolutions that get you there. The Totodile line gives you bean sausage. They're all just solid mons. Squirtle's ingredient focused, and Totodile is berries focused. But the thing is why I really like milk and sausage is because there's the hearty cheeseburger curry, which is a C tier recipe because it has
it's the next step up
16
from apple juice and your just straight meat curry or straight honey curry. It's like the next step up.
But that's the best thing, is that if you fail to get enough of one or the other, you can fall back on either ingredient. Because hearty cheeseburger curry only takes milk and sausage. And then there are 2 recipes, each of which only need milk or only need sausage. Simple chowder and bean burger curry. So it's just a really, really good fallback, where if you just barely don't cut it on one of them, you can fall back to the other. And it provides you this extra cushion to fall back on for consistent ingredients. You could run a really solid, 3 Totodile, 2 Squirtle week, and you will get hearty cheeseburgers out the butt, and it will be excellent.
Yeah, and I will say, I've been running 2 Squirtles, 2 Totodiles, and they're Crocodiles now and Wartortles now, but I've never missed my hearty cheeseburger ever. Yeah. Ever on Cyan. Ever with 2 of each.
If you're lower level, it might happen, but once you've gotten to a certain
sub 10, yeah.
Yeah. But once you've gotten to a decent-ish level, especially if you have any even kind of decent sub skills, you'll just be consistently making a hearty cheeseburger. If you can get 1 ingredient an hour, you're going to be making it every single time. One of each ingredient an hour. You can easily do that.
Once you get to those mid levels with Wartortle 2, I don't even know if you need more than one Wartortle to do it. I still think it's worth it having 2 Wartortles, 3 Crocodiles, or whatever. But you could honestly probably settle for 1 Wartortle and 2 Crocodiles and still hit it once you get up into the higher 10s.
Yeah, the issue with curry is that that's kind of your only option if you want to stay within Umbrella, is that you do have the cheeseburger curry with chowder and bean burger, but that's kind of all you have. Which brings me to salads, because salads seem like both the worst and best week. It's a very interesting one here. It's basically, if you don't have Crocodile, you're screwed. But if you do have a Totodile, Crocodile for Alligator, you are eating well. because all of the salad recipes have a very big focus in
more than one. You need like 2 or 3 preferably.
But like you need to have bean sausages to do anything in a salad week. Like
there's no straight milk salad, there's no straight honey salad, there's no straight cacao salad.
But there is a straight bean salad, and there's also 2 other ingredients that are bean plus something else.
Yeah.
There's bean milk
bean and chocolate
bean cacao.
And a bean and milk. Yeah.
Yep.
we said it backwards, but yeah. There's a bean and milk and a bean and cacao dish. So it's really important for you to get a Totodile for salad week on Cyan. Preferably 2. Unless you're splashing on like a Charmander or Pikachu, it's slightly inefficient, but there are other options. You really, really want that Totodile, though.
Cyan has this really weird dichotomy between it, where you absolutely need sausage 2 of the 3 weeks, and you cannot use sausage in the 3rd week. It's such a weird balance where it's like, oh, did you do curry or salad? Cool. Whip out your 3 croquenauds, but if you're on the dessert week, you will bench all 3 of them.
I will say Croconaw still gets good value as like on-island berry specialist. If you're hitting your dessert meals in 3 to 4 Pokemon, you still probably run it like one or two Croconaws if you're still hitting it with your other Pokemon, just because they are on-island berry specialists.
That's true, but I'm talking about like specifically for ingredients. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah, we are talking about specifically for ingredients, but it's not just straight bench your Croconauts. It's you're benching them if you can't hit your meals for other stuff that can't hit the meals. But once you're hitting those meals, they're still pretty great value.
Yeah, and you'll just build up a bunch of bean sausages for next week. So you'll have 500 bean sausages, and you can start plowing into all the other recipes.
You can always throw the extra bean sausage into your milk to make a nice, warm, meaty milk soup.
Yum! I love me some good,
milk drink.
Yeah, meaty milk drink. Hearty cheeseburger curry.
Yep. It's just you just blended your hearty cheeseburger curry and drinking it now. Ugh. Anyways, Cyan, there's a really weird dichotomy. I generally tell people whenever someone asks me what's the best team for Cyan, I generally tell them 2 Squirtle, 2 to 3 Totodile, and or Pikachu. You run your Totodiles, and then you can use a 3rd Totodile or your Pikachu in the last slot. That's generally what I tell people, because Squirtle gets you the milk for desserts, it gets you the milk for curry, it gets you the milk for your milk and ham salad, so it's really important there. Croconaw is a berry specialist. It gets you your bean sausage for the other 2 weeks, and even on dessert week, you can always default to milk. I think it's the most consistent, like, air quote, easy to set up team.
Yeah, if you really just want to have something that you can do every single week, no matter what, I would say go a little bit more into Squirtles, just because Snowcloak Caesar salad requires more milk than it does sausage. And even though that it is an ingredient mon, you would really like to build up more milk than you do sausage, I think, generally. Because if you're going to be doing multiple weeks back to back, like, if you're doing, for example, just the dessert week, you only have milk to use. So I would just stock up on milk, pile up on milk, and it's just going to be good like all the time. Like, basically every single one of these weeks, having a bunch of milk is going to be nice.
Yeah, like, for sure.
Like, I would much rather have an excess 100 milk on the side than an excess 100 sausage, personally. But that's all very much dependent on your own personal strategy, what mons you have, what islands
really
you plan on going to.
Yeah, exactly. On your box. And I know, like, me personally, I'm using 2 Wartortle, 2 Croconaw, and then the starter Pikachu, which is now a Raichu. I've been using that just every week on Cyan. Turn my brain off, use that. It's been working well. I don't have to really think hard past that.
Exactly. So, notable mons then for Cyan is the Squirtle line, is the the Wigglytuff line.
Wigglytuff good for dessert.
We have Golduck and the Golduck, the Slowbro line, or Slowpoke line. We talked about Totodile. We didn't talk about a couple different mons here, and I'm going to talk about why we didn't. So there's the Dodrio line, as well as Togepi and Swablu. There is one recipe that requires eggs, period, and that is the Cloud9 soy cake, of the ones that you can only make using eggs. During the desserts week, you could make Cloud9 soy cake using fancy egg and soybeans. Soybeans you can only get from the Dodrio line, but the problem is that there's no outlet for soybeans, and the only thing you can use them with are fancy eggs, which have no ingredient mons and are kind of hard to get in general. And they're also only on skill mons, so that's also a whole other issue. And then the Hustle Protein Smoothie, which you can only get with cacao. And cacao, although you can get, a decent amount of, only comes from the 2 mon lines that aren't really that good in the first place. So I think that Yep.
Sorry. I will say eggs are... If you can get yourself an actual Togekiss, eggs aren't as doomed on Cyan, because it's a favored berry skill specialist, high frequency. It's not gathering a ton, but you could very easily get eggs off of a Togekiss if you're willing to put in that investment.
If you have it, it's fine. Yeah. It's just that it's only fine if you are on that week.
Yeah, that's the issue. It's only fine if you're on that week, and it's kind of just like generic filler outside of that. Good generic filler, but generic filler outside of that week.
Yeah, like honey isn't very good, but there are 2 weeks that you can use honey, so it's like not the worst in the world to have on a general team. On the other hand, it really is just bad for you to have if you're on like salads. Like it just doesn't do anything for you.
Yeah, there is some... I know we said we weren't going to talk about long-term. There are some long-term arguments for eggs that are pretty big, so it's not the worst case getting a Togekiss now. Yeah. But it's also not something you're like desperately gunning for or anything. It's way simpler just to grab Squirtles, grab Totodiles. Maybe you're grabbing some of those other Pokemon for Dessert Week, but yeah.
So yeah, now that we have that, let us go into... I guess Top Time is probably your best bet now.
Oh boy. You want to start with the good, the bad, or the ugly?
I mean, I'm always glad talking about the uglies, but the big thing is that on top, you are...
Boned on dessert.
So, yeah, that's putting it lightly. I prefer using slightly more graphic language, but let me put it this way. Flareon is the only thing that will save you.
And at that point, just bring over Wartortle from Cyan. Save yourself the pain.
Yeah, so if you're only looking at it, like if you're looking at only recipes you can make with only ingredients that are theoretically accessible by only those mons,
the stuff that's favored on that island,
then you got a lot of really cool options.
For everything that's not dessert.
Everything that's not dessert, because in dessert your only option is warm moo milk. You have literally no other options. That is how hilariously boned you are. It's actually embarrassing how hilariously screwed over you are with that. Like, it's bad. But I find it hilarious, because every other week is just fine. Like there's no major issues with them. Curry, you have the whole cheeseburger loop again if you go with milk. But again, then you have to go for milk. And milk you can only get access to via Flareon. Your other option is Solar Power Tomato Curry, which is tomato and fiery herbs. Tomatoes you can get from Diglett Dug Trio, as well as Sudowoodo. And then you get from the good old Fire Doggo. So you can get there. If you get 2 or 3 Diglets, or I mean if you want to go Sudowoodo, I will laugh at you, but you can if you want. And then a couple Arcanine, you'll be going pretty good. Especially since Arcanine, if Arcanine ability triggers, it will trigger Diglett or Growlithe. In which case you can get more ingredients. So it's a really nice, consistent feedback loop that just feels really nice.
For sure. This is something I want to try, but I haven't been able to yet, because I'm kind of waiting for a good Growlithe to evolve. Yeah. But I think you can honestly do this with pretty average Growlithe, to be fair.
I mean, almost certainly.
I'm just kind of picky with my Pokemon sometimes. But the Diglett Growlithe, your options are basically run Diglets plus Growlithes, multiples of each, and you're making the Solar Power Tomato Curry, or you're running Charmander and you're going for the meat curry.
Yeah.
Those are your 2 options for Curry Week.
That's surprisingly narrow, all things considered.
There's options, but it's not anything wow. But they're consistent options. So there's that.
But they're also not excellent options,
Yeah. Well, Charmander's pretty good, but then you're stuck with the bad dish. Diglett and Growlithe are slightly outclassed by Charmander and some berry finders, but then you get the really good recipe. So there's some give and take that's kind of weird. It really depends on what you own.
Yeah. Now, let's talk about... so we talked briefly about the Curry Week. We talked a bit about the dessert week, but now salads. Salads are really interesting to me here. Because, I don't know, they seem really good, actually.
Yeah, no, so you have a lot of salad options. You have your tomatoes from Diglets for salads. You have your meat from Charmander for the meat salad. You have Charmander plus Flareon for your milk and sausage salad.
Yep.
And there's also a couple other interesting ones. There's Heatwave Tofu salad, which needs herb and soybeans, and Geodude gives soybeans in his favorite, so you can go for that.
That's a good pair, yeah.
What was the other one? Watervale Tofu salad, which
Yep.
is tomato plus soybeans, which you can do with Geodude plus Diglett.
Yep.
So that's also not bad. And then there's also the big one. Do you want to talk about the big one?
Overheat?
Overheat ginger salad.
So,
It's wild.
yeah, it is, it requires 10 ginger, 8 tomatoes, 17 fiery herbs. Now,
Oh, yeah.
the problem here is that there are no ingredient specialists that give fiery herbs. Your only option is Growlithe. So, the problem is you need a lot of Growlithe to get that fiery herb consistently. But if you're already running, Growlithe for whatever reason, might just be able to build that up over time.
If you
But the
have
problem
2 or 3
is,
Arcanines from Curry Week.
yeah, you could absolutely do it. The problem, though, is you also have to go for ginger, which doesn't have a backup or any other ingredient. So you're stacking mons for 2 ingredients that aren't useful anywhere else. Mm-hmm. So if you want fiery herbs to be useful, you also have to be stacking up soybeans. So really, if you want to be stacking for overheat, you're doing soybeans, ginger, tomato, and fiery herbs. And you probably want to have 2 Growlithes for that. And that's going to be your core. And you'll be defaulting back to either Snoozy Tomato Salad or Watervale Tofu Salad consistently in order to just get any kind of recipe out on days that you're not able to get enough fiery herbs.
To me, if I was going for the overheat ginger salad, which honestly probably is worth it, I would be looking to run 2 Arcanines, a Typhlosion, and probably 2 Diglets. Maybe 1 Diglett, 2 Typhlosions, although that'd be stretching my tomatoes really thin.
Then you wouldn't be running any soybean mons.
No, but what I could do with that is just default to the Snoozy Tomato and then try to make the
that's fair.
overheat every time.
Because Dugtrio is an ingredients mon with tomatoes. So you could just say, if I don't have enough, I'll just default to the tomatoes, because I will always have enough tomatoes.
That's how I would tackle it if I was going for the overheat ginger salad. I think it might be worthwhile for some people to try it, but it really depends. Like, do you have, preferably 2 good Growlithe / Arcanine? Do you have a Typhlosion, preferably one that's not ingredient down, and then do you have a good
couple solid Diglett
it's a very niche, like two Diglets. Probably they can be average Diglets, but you kind of need the 2 good Growliths and a not ingredient down Typhlosion to really be gunning for this. But I think if you can hit it, I'm gonna say once a day, but maybe every other day even. It's probably worth it.
Yeah. And now. Okay, so now here's the question. Sure. What were you going to? I was going to pivot into dessert, but what were you going to say?
I was going to say, looking at this, I actually hate Flareon less now. Looking at the ingredients, because
I keep telling people that Flareon is underrated only because it's the only mon that gets you absolutely anything on top.
Yeah,
it's so ridiculous.
You can use it on curry, you can use it on salad, and you can use it on dessert. It's good for every single week for the milk, for the same reason Squirtle's good on Cyan for every single week for the milk. It just doesn't gather as fast as Squirtle, which is an issue, but it's not the end of the world. Anyways, go ahead. What you're going to say on dessert.
So, dessert looks really, really bad. And that's because it is. However, there is basically one fallback that exists. There is a fallback, and it's ugly. So basically, if we ignore milk and we just look at all the other possible recipes, there are a few recipes that do not that are only 1 ingredient away from making a decent recipe. So for example, there is the Cloud9 soy cake, which has 7 soybeans, 8 eggs. So you could go into eggs, okay, but eggs are kind of shitty to grab, so maybe that's not great. We could do the stalwart vegetable juice. Really isn't a bad choice. It's snoozy tomatoes and apples, so you could just go bring in your Pikachu or your Raichu and get that.
Yeah.
There's also Hustle Protein Smoothie, which you can put, which is only missing cacao. It has 15 soybeans. Again, you're running really deep into soybeans, but that's fine because they're ingredient mons if you have the Geodude. And then you can get soothing cacao through, other means.
Ideally Absol, but if for some reason you have your level 30 Slowbro, you can always bring him in, I guess.
Yeah. There is Ember Ginger Tea, which is apples and warming ginger. That's just fine. Lot of options available. Yeah.
Yeah, Starter Pikachu's really good for patching up top dessert week. Battles are so clutch from it.
So actually,
looking at
not really though.
A little. Iffy.
So it's funny because you'd think that it would be worthwhile, but it actually doesn't patch up that much. It does give you fancy apple juice if you just need to have a fallback thing. Yeah. It does give you Ember Ginger Tea, and it does give you Neroli's Restorative Tea. And it gives you saltwort vegetable juice. The problem is that none of those other recipes line up with anything else. Like, there is only one dessert that uses tomatoes, period. There is only one dessert at all. So you don't really want to use tomatoes in your recipes because you can't really fall back on anything. And then from there, you're looking at, okay, well, maybe I want to do the ginger option with Ember Ginger Tea. Well, there's a second recipe you're close to. Yes, Ember Ginger Tea is a decent one. You could also
2 Raichu and 3 Cyndaquil line, because at that point you can pretty consistently hit it off of 2 Raichu, 3 Cyndaquil, and you're getting 3 favored Berrymons on top of that. It's a little bit scuffed, but I think it's worthwhile mentioning.
The problem is that your big weight back is going to be how many apples you can get.
Yeah,
because you're only running two Raichus. If you don't get apples, you get nothing.
Yep.
So if you want to get consistent ingredients for dessert, you have to run. You need to run an apple specialist. Honestly, that's kind of all you're really looking for. And do you know what mons are ingredient specialists for apples?
I don't even think there is one. Is there?
I don't think there is either. Nope, there isn't. Cool.
Yeah.
So you're just boned.
Like, no, I will say 2 Raichu, I'm pretty sure it gets you there.
It doesn't though.
It's gonna be getting
because how often you don't get 10 apples a day from one Raichu, right? You think you get 10 apples a day from one Raichu?
I feel like I do. I feel like I probably get like 12 to 14.
Because that's what you kind of need. Because it's 7 apples per recipe, and it's
I could be clouded. I have an
day.
inventory up L Raichu, so when I tap it in the morning, it drops like 8 right away.
Well, that's pretty decent then. Fair enough.
Yeah.
If you have a decent inventory size, which you very well could, mind you, if you're using your starter Pikachu, it'll be down 5 capacity than you could have gotten if you got a Pichu originally, but same idea.
Yeah, it depends. I think it's worth mentioning, but it is a scuffed option. It really depends on your box a little bit. Like, if you have 2 ingredient down Pikachus, you're probably not getting there. But if they're like EXP downs, it is kind of comfy. It's a little bit easier.
Yeah, exactly. Everything about Top's Dessert Week is just incredibly cursed. Its Salad Week isn't much better. There's a lot of options, but you're kind of only really, locked into 1 or 2 possible groupings.
There's good dishes you can go, but there's no flexibility.
And then there's Curry, which is like reverse cursed, which is like, wow, it actually looks like it's really good, until you realize that you need exactly Flareon or you're boned again. It's like, wow, cool, I guess I'm doing either Flareon or tomato herb combo, and that's it. I guess I'm running...
I know a lot of players on top just say screwed to ingredients and recipes and just go for the 6 ingredient meals. I know it's not ideal, but I know a lot of players do it just because it's so hard there. They're just like, I'm going to run, 4 Cyndaquil and just let a Charmander do all the meal stuff, and I just hit the minimums. I know a lot of players do stuff like that. It's not ideal. There are better ways to go about it, because recipes do give you tons of value. It's just,
but it's also fine to do that.
Those ways are hard to get there.
But it does just work. It's like, I'm never going to say, hey, you, the way that you are doing your consistent strategy is not the way I want you to do it. Like,
Yeah.
if all you want to do is say, screw it, I'm just gonna go for Bean Burger Curry by getting 1 or 2 Charmanders in there, that's fine. It's gonna get you there, and it'll get you the bare minimum amount of value out of it that will just give you a little extra push. And then another week, if you roll into it and get salads, you can then say, cool, all the things I've gotten last week, I can now invest into something else, and it's not gonna be a complete and total waste.
And then when you roll dessert, you give the company $5 and get out of there.
Yeah, you change your right leg. Like, that is like honestly, if we're gonna be writing like a short one-line quippy, how do you beat each week? I will just say like for, if you're on top and you roll that, I would just say, consider an insane asylum. That's really the best option you have. Like, get yourself committed. That's your only option. That or shell out $5.
Yeah, or shell out $5 and switch islands. Or cave in and bring in your Squirtle from Cyan, hit the milk dish, and just cry.
Never history. So now we have one more interesting option here. Snowdrop. This is... I don't know.
A journey.
Snowdrop's
a journey.
Let's start with Curry. Curry is interesting to start off with. Because Snowdrop has a pretty wide variety of options. The problem with having a wide variety of options is that they're spread thin. You only have one way to get fancy apples in this area, and that's entirely by going rats. With Rattata Raticate. If you want to go milk, your only option is the Evolution lines. Umbreon, Glaceon, and Eevee. You could go Eevee, because Eevee is actually a person berry user, which is, it's completely fine to use. I would not shun you if you wanted to use Eevee for Ingredient Magnet, because honestly,
shun you if you want to use Eevee over Glaceon, I think.
Honestly, Eevee is better than Glaceon and Umbreon to a degree. Ingredient Magnet is a really, really good ability. Wikiberry is better than Persim, but you do get a bunch of other buffs when you upgrade to Umbreon, so I still think you probably should. Yeah, but if you have good Eevees, if you do have some good Eevees, it's fine to just keep Eevees, honestly, because of exactly Snowdrop. Eevee is not, it's not... It's probably the best place if you want to grind up Eevees to make one Umbreon and Espeon. I would say this is probably the best place to do it, because you can really get advantage of your Moo Milks.
For sure, I agree. I hard agree.
So, the other thing, though, is if we're talking curries, there's only 3 curries available to you. There's one that requires 7 apples, there's one that requires 7 milk, and then there's one that's 10 tomato, 5 herbs. Tomato is only accessible through the Slack-Off line.
Mm-hmm.
Fiery Herb is only accessible via the Houndour line. And that's it. So you are running Slack-Off and Houndour, or their evolutions. Most likely Vigoroth and Houndoom. Mm-hmm. And that's it. You don't have another option. It's that and the evolution line and the Rattata lines.
Yeah, it is worth mentioning you can bring your Diglett in from top if it's a pretty good Diglett. I feel like there's a lot of players that are going to do that for Curry Week and then run a couple Houndours. I feel like that is likely going to be the case. Like, you bring in your Diglett, you run 2 Slack-Offs, run 2 Houndours, and you pray.
Yep. But again, you're breaking the berries at that point. But it's also fine. You don't always have to stay strict to the berries. We're only doing so because it provides an interesting thought exercise about how do we optimize and exercise the optimal possible way out here. And I mean, I'm not even considering the fact that frequency could matter here as well when we're talking objective strength, because it really does matter. A mon that has a better berry but a lower frequency might be less good, but we're not talking about that.
Or a mon with a lower frequency and a worse berry could be better. Who knows?
Yeah, who knows, because maybe it has a good ingredient, but we're just not talking about that. But so curries bad but
you're
salvageable.
Playing 5 rats, or you're playing Slack-Off, Houndour, and bringing in a Diglett.
So I want to pivot from curries to desserts, because I would like to slowly get to my genuine opinion of what I think the objectively best team for here. You know what I'm going to be saying. We've already talked about this.
I have a hunch. I have a solid hunch.
You have a hunch, and I think you're probably correct. And we will get to that, but I would like to leave out here is the objectively correct team to run when you are on Snowdrop. No, just when you're on Snowdrop, period.
Snowdrop, period.
Because I think that there is one basically objective team that you run every single week, no matter what.
Oh, I have my own objective team. Let's compare at the end.
Yeah. So now we have desserts.
Rats.
Desserts. Yeah. So desserts, rats. You have fancy apple juice. Cool. You have Ember Ginger Tea, which is apple juice and ginger. If you want to do warming ginger, you have a couple options. You have the Kangaskhan line and exactly Tyranitar.
Yeah,
the Tyranitar line.
Larvitar and Pupitar aren't considered darks in the game.
They're considered rock types.
Yeah. But T-Tar switches over to a dark berry long term. So if you have a level 43 T-Tar,
which you don't,
or you got to like Master 6 and caught one and top, which nobody does unless you're a whale.
If you have, I want you to
send us a
please give me your
screenshot.
account.
I'll send you $20.
Honestly, if you send us a screenshot, I mean, it'll be $20. That's awesome. Like that's just cool. Tyranitar is fun.
The first person. I don't want to shell it $100, but the first
every single person who does it, every single person who sends one to Anders, he will personally Venmo you $20 for the rest of eternity. Every single one of you for all of time.
Sends me a picture of them scrolling through their box with the T-Tar in there.
This is a permanent
$20.
This is a permanent offer for the rest of all of time. He will continue to send $20 every day that somebody gives him a new T-Tar.
Anyways, Kangaskhan. Anyways, as you were saying, Ember Ginger Tea, Kangaskhan or T-Tar. Players don't really have T-Tar. 99.9% of players don't have T-Tar.
So you're lying on Kangaskhan, which most players also don't have right now. There are some that do.
It's not
some players do have them.
99.99, but not a lot of players have Kangaskhan. It's really rare. It's only on green grass. It's hard to get. It's 16 points to catch as well. Not a lot of people have it.
So as that, I think that we just say...
For the Ember Ginger Tea.
Yeah, I think we kind of just say, let's not go to Ginger then. Because Ginger is probably really not that good to go for. I'm going to skip over a little bit.
Because you would even ideally have 2 Kangaskhan here.
Yeah, exactly.
If you are the person with 2 Kangaskhan, slam this. You're good.
If you have 2 Kangaskhan, 100%. Yep. Yeah. If you got a Kangaskhan, that is excellent to run during this week. You just run 3 rats, a bunch of Kangaskhan, and you're going to be golden. Yes. However, there's another option you can do as well. Stalwart Vegetable Juice, which is 7 apples and a bunch of Suzy tomatoes. Suzy tomatoes, as I mentioned before, are only accessible by the Slackoth line. So if you happen to have a couple Slackoth or Vigoroth, you can plop them in rats and you will get there.
I feel weird about the Stalwart Vegetable Juice, because if you're sacrificing rats for Slackoth, rats already only gather 1 apple at a time. So if you're trading off those rats for Slackoths, you're potentially really shaky on making a meal that day. This is technically better than the fancy apple juice, but you're really, really playing with fine numbers that you might not hit your meal sometimes.
Though it is also notable that Slackoth does have ingredient magnet S.
Yes,
so because
it is a very
of
nice
that, it is possible to be able to roll into some of the other possible recipes,
maybe roll
which
some
is
milk
very
a couple
relevant.
Times or whatever.
Exactly. And if you manage to roll in something that you don't already have access to, for example, if you roll into let me see if there's one that I'm missing here. I don't know, if you get into... not tasty mushrooms, that's a bad idea. I'm rolling to see if there's literally anything here that you could possibly roll into that would be valuable.
I mean, honey, milk...
Soft potatoes. If you roll into a couple soft potatoes for whatever reason...
You need the level 30, but yes.
I know, but let's say you did. Then you could roll in soft potatoes for whatever reason, you could get fluffy sweet potatoes. That's a possible option angle you could take if you're also running Moo Moo Milks. There are other lines theoretically. You could also roll into gingers and get Ember Ginger Tea. You got a little bit of flexibility in theory. It's not super notable, but it's still you're getting more rolls.
Rattatas plus Slackoths I don't like as much as just straight rats or rats plus Kangaskhan. But I don't think it's unsalvageable. I think it's a team that if you have some good Slackoths, you can 100% make it work.
And next we have the Salad Week, which is...
Oh, wait, we skipped over Lucky Chant
yes, you're right.
Pie.
Lucky Chant. Yeah, Lucky Chant Apple Pie is 12 apples, 4 Moo Moo Milks, which this actually seems possibly viable. Reason being is if you whiff on apples, you have a warm Moo Moo Milk as a dessert option to fall back from milks. And if you lack milks, you have the Ember Ginger Tea to fall back on the fancy apple juice to fall back for your fancy apples. So you have the fallbacks for both ways. It's like the cheeseburger thing we talked about before, where you have fallbacks for both possible ingredients. These do as well. And
this also doesn't deviate much from running rats. You're running rats for basically every single team, regardless, for Dessert Week. And this doesn't deviate from that much. It's just, throw on an Eevee or an Umbreon or a Glaceon.
Except not Glaceon, because Glaceon's bad.
Yeah, not Glaceon because Glaceon bit. But you just throw on one evolution and you're there on Lucky Chain Apple Pie, and that's pretty notable to me for the rats plus an evolution.
Yep, and yep, that's honestly all I can really say about it. That's 100% true.
Yeah, it's probably the best one to go for on Dessert Week, probably.
Yep, if you don't want to run a 5-rat week, then you can do like 3 or 4 rats and then grab an Eevee.
Maybe 3 rats, your starter Pikachu, and an Eevee.
Yep. And now we have salads. So salads are weird. We're just gonna go top down here. With Snoozy Tomato Salad is just 8 Snoozy Tomatoes. Which that would be excellent if it weren't for the fact that the only Snoozy Tomatoes are the sloths. There's a lot of tomato... Like, there's a lot of tomatoes now that I'm looking at in
for salad, yeah.
No, not just for salad, for general. Like, there is a recipe
all week, huh?
Yeah. You have an option all week, and I wonder if we should bump up the slack off in our tier list.
So
now that we're looking at this right now,
I think it's dicey on the Dessert Week some, and
I don't think it's dicey on Dessert Week. I think that you could absolutely get there decently on Dessert Week by running 2 and 3.
It's way less consistent than just rats plus an evolution, though.
Well, yeah, of course. Because, I mean, actually, is it actually much more risky? Because either way, they're both 16 ingredients.
Yeah, but the apple pie one, you have a fallback. You have a fallback that requires less apples. You can fall back onto the milk, or you can fall back onto the apples, and it's less apples than the
But here's the thing.
Too.
You could run, 4 rats and 1 Vigoroth. And then if you're because your rats are always going to get you enough ingredients, you're gonna get it. You're gonna get a lot of that. But then eventually you're gonna build up enough tomatoes just generally that you can get 1 stalwart juice in.
Yeah,
doing 3-2 is a bit riskier.
It like the Lucky Chant, that's fair.
Yeah, if we're treating it the same way as Lucky Chant, where we could say we're going to favor onto the side that has a fallback. That way, if we don't meet the other side, we're not screwed, right?
I still think Lucky Chant is easier to hit, but
I'd agree.
Once you mention that, it's probably more just do either or. Just run 1 slack off.
Exactly.
Or run Eevee.
Yeah,
it's probably a lot more fair of a comparison than I was making it out to be. But I still think Lucky Chant is edging it out slightly. But
I would agree.
That is fair. That is fair, though. We do want the tomatoes for salad, and we want it. There is a curry option. Let me say it that way.
Yeah, and then we're going back to salads. Though we have the Snoozy Tomato Salad, and honestly, Vigoroth is really not as bad as I think a lot of people are giving them credit for. Being the only Snoozy Tomato Mon in all of Snowdrop does give them a significant niche because every single week you can do something with them. Especially if you have Houndour somewhere to be able to work with, then you can get some pretty decent consistency going along in your curry weeks. But yeah, you have Snoozy Tomato as an option, and then you have the 2 higher tier ones you've seen so far: Moo Caprese Salad and Overheat Ginger Salad. Moo Caprese, yeah, it's 12 milk, 6 tomato, 5 oil. I don't like it. It is milk, and you can get milk. We've already talked about milk using evolutions. Pure oil is only accessible by Ditto and the Spheal line.
Yes.
Which Spheal is weird, and I don't really like it because that its only options are during salad weeks. Otherwise, its Rostberry is fine, but it itself just bothers me.
I will make an argument for this meal. If you can get 3 Vigoroths, you could bring in a Wartortle, and then you could run a Spheal, and then you could do Snoozy Tomato Salads and occasionally a Moo Caprese. That is my argument for Moo Caprese. That is asking you to bring your Wartortle from off-island, but it's probably going to be better than half the stuff you're going to have on top anyways.
I mean, you could just run an Eevee.
Or
even an Umbreon.
You're going to get it a lot less, since you need 12 milk per dish.
But you're right.
It's not the worst doing it that way either. You could do 3 Vigoroth, a Spheal, and an Umbreon.
But it also means that you'll be able to trigger your whatever abilities you have more often, your charge energies onto yourself to be able to farm more often, or the ingredient magnets to be able to pop and get a bunch more a variety of ingredients.
Argument for Baby Eevee then, if we're only wanting to stick on island. I think I would prefer a Blastoise to an Eevee, but
I mean, you're gonna say you're gonna prefer a Blastoise to Eevee? Come on, yes, but Eevee is a baby.
Eevee,
which one's easier to get, generally, right? Yeah,
Eevee could do it for sure.
Now.
Ginger.
Overheat Ginger is 10 ginger, 17 fiery herbs, and 8 Snoozy Tomatoes. So again, we have the Snoozy Tomatoes we need, but now we also need Ginger, which we talked about is really only accessible from Kangaskhan. You can also get it from just Tyranitar, but nobody has Tyranitar.
This
So
one's
it's like,
going to be incredibly hard to do. I think you actually need Gengar to hit this on this island, which is off island, but Gengar's a good Pokemon.
I mean, yeah, Gengar's just
great. You could do it with Houndour, but 17 Herb is a lot. If you're just running one Houndour and going, I'm going to make the overheat once in a while, you're not hitting this very often. You're probably going to hit it maybe twice that week.
Fiery Herb, Snoozy Tomato, and Warming
17. It needs 17 Fiery Herb, and you need a lot of Houndours to do that. And if you're running a lot of Houndours, you don't have other meals to fall back on, really. If you're going to be strapped for tomatoes, you're going to be strapped for base. That's like your only other fallback is the Snoozy Tomato Salad. So there's a lot of push and pull with the Houndours, but I do think Gengar has a legitimate option here being brought on the island. And it has good stuff for other weeks too.
But it's like
Curry.
It's only Gengar if you have Kangaskhan, right? If you have Kangaskhan to be able to have an ingredient with an ingredient magnet, warming Gingermon, then you can bring on your Kangaskhan, and then you could have, and then you can bring on your Gengar, and then you bring on
a bunch of
Vigoroths, and or like Diglett if you really want to. But like then you're playing more. Then you're playing a lot of off islands, and you got to think about the weight of that.
Yeah.
But it's available. It's an option. It's flexibility. It's not the worst in the world. But
it's a good meal if you can hit it.
And now we can go into the 2 apple recipes, which is fancy apple salad, which is just 8 apples. Every single recipe week has a plain apples option, and that is only accessible by rats. But
rats, we love rats. I will say, Absol gets their level 30 plus. I guess.
Yeah, but
but yeah, rats. We are here for the rat team.
Next, we have dazzling apple cheese salad, which is a really interesting option for me because I think it's not terrible. It is 15 apples, which is a thing you have to get past. But you
probably also have a lot of rats,
and you can default to normal apples if you don't have enough. It's not a huge deal. 5 Moo Milks, which is really easily accessible through just having an Eevee, and 3 pure oils, which you don't need very much of. And because you're probably not hitting the 15 consistently, you can just run like 1 Spheal. And just having like 1 Spheal, 1 Eevee, and 3 rats will get you fancy apple salads reasonably consistently, and then dazzling apple cheese salads every once in a while once you get enough ingredients. And if you realize that you're starting to stack up on milks and oils and you're not really getting there with the apples, you can just swap them out afterwards and just run a couple more rats for a while, and then
or bring on your starter
you can pop
for a day.
Yeah, and then you can pop the dazzling apple cheese salads a couple times. Like, so with all of this,
I do want to make one note.
Yes.
There's a really interesting through line I see here where you want milk and oil.
Yeah.
And then you want apple or tomato. So there is like a weird world. I didn't spot that. Yeah. There is a weird world where you could alternate Moo Caprese and dazzling apple cheese, where you're running, rat, Vigoroth, Wartortle, Spheal. And I don't know what the last slot would be. Probably something that
you could do, instead of Wartortle,
like a Diglett.
Instead of Wartortle, you could run like double milks.
You could run double milks, or you can
because
do
double Eevee with ingredient magnet is relevant.
Yeah. The other thing is that you could do Diglett. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is that with a rat, a Vigoroth, a Wartortle, a Spheal, and I'm going to say a Diglett so you can default onto the Snoozy Tomato salad more, you could look at potentially alternating Moo Caprese salad, dazzling apple cheese, and default to Snoozy Tomato. So it's a kind of like very specific setup, but I think if you can hit that, it's potentially really powerful for Salad Week.
I would agree with that. I think it's a very fair assessment.
Anyway, your wrap up thoughts.
Yeah, so I just want to quickly go through some of the comments. Well, actually, first of all, wrap up thoughts, and I want to go through some of the comments people have posted in the channel here that we can just do brief Q&A.
Okay.
Firstly, my favorite team, about what I think the best possible team is for this week. If you haven't heard it being said a million times, I think it's kind of obvious at this point. It's running 5 rats. I think that is the consistent team. If you just want to run one fucking team that's going to get you some consistency, it is going to get you sorry for the language, by the way.
You're going to hit a meal
You're going to hit a meal every single day, 3 times a day. You're going to get a bunch of apples, and you're just going to get so many apples you can just fill it up, and who cares? yours, right? Like, you're gonna have a bunch of favorite berries. Rattatas have our berry specialty mons. You're gonna be loaded up on person berries. They're also all charge energy S-mons. So they're all gonna be stupidly high energy, which means they're gonna farm a lot, which means they're gonna get you a bunch of apples even more, which means you're always gonna hit all of the apple things. And you can just toss all your spare apples into wherever you want anywhere else. And after you do this over and over again, you'll have so many apples, even still.
You're gonna get
on your
Rattata
Sundays. Exactly. And then you can use the
Rattata
Rattata candy.
Your best rat.
Exactly. And then you can finally have a Rattata in the top 2% of Rattata.
I think after going through today, I think my preferred list, I'm gonna be wild here. 4 rats and an Eevee. Or an evolution or whatever. I think that's my preferred team. Because it gets you all the rats, it gets you a couple other options for the other days. Or it gets you extra options on... How do I want to put this? It gets you extra options on desserts. But it does the same rat stuff altogether. But that's a very minor nitpick. Just run rats.
Yeah.
You want rats.
You can,
as many rats as you can get.
Like, I think that people who, like, I looked at a tier list recently when I was on Reddit. I removed the post recently, but it was a post that was like, hey, I just took a bunch of infographics from a bunch of different places and put them here. And I looked through briefly, and I'm like, okay, this is an infographic that was stolen off of the subreddit. This is an infographic that was stolen off of Facebook. And then I found a tier list. And I'm like, this tier list, I've never seen before. And I looked through and saw that they put rats in C tier. And I'm like, is this supposed to be like a general tier list? Yeah, it's for all the different islands. Oh, so you have no idea what you're talking about then. Because anybody who puts rats anywhere under A tier is throwing. This is like, rats are so ridiculously strong. Yeah. It's your own option.
Okay, it's not your only option.
It's your only consistent option. It's your only consistent option. Slackoff only works if you have
X, Y, and Z.
If you have X, Y, and Z. You need to have a Kangaskhan, or you need to have your Houndooms, or you need to have your, well, if you're, or you, I mean, hell, if you're a dessert week, you still need to have your friggin' Rattatas anyways.
Yeah. It's, yeah, like, there are options, but rats are the consistency. Rats
all
are
of the other
savior.
options are jank. You just run rats. And I think that the genuine best strategy for Snowtop is just to pile on the rats. So,
yeah, I mean, 5 favorite berry specialists that hits your meals on an island that has really hard to hit meal requirements is super easy and super convenient, because you could just soak in the berry values and still hit your ingredients. Anyways, yes, you were gonna say.
Well, I was gonna say, now at this point we can quickly go over and chat with anybody who sent something in our voice channel here, because I saw some people were talking. Some people were saying that top sucks for dessert. Yup. People are talking about bringing a Gengar for favorite berry. Absolutely. Rats are available on Cyan. Absolutely. You should be farming on Cyan for a good couple weeks. Just to grab as many rats as possible, so you can, when you go to Snowtop eventually, you will just be able to farm with rats. Did you discuss the 5 Spheels tract? What? There's no such thing.
Spiels,
that doesn't exist.
So the issue with 5 Spheels is you don't hit your meals. There's no pure oil meals. Rats are kind of better for that because you can hit your meals every day, every meal.
There's also no...
Yeah, it's also a bit of a waste to Wolverine, too.
That's also this is really bad. Okay, I'm just looking at this right now. If you're running a bunch of Spheels, if you are on dessert, there is only 2 recipes that use oil at all, and they use different ingredients, and you need 13 other ingredients in order to be able to get there. It's either 7 milk, 6 honey, or 6 soybean, 7 cacao. So that's terrible on desserts. What about during salads? On salads, you need slowpoke tails for 1, or you need tiny mushrooms for another, or you need 6 tomatoes, 12 milk, or you need 15 apples, 5 milk.
Which is rats.
Which is, you may as well just run rats, right? 5 Spheal isn't going to do anything there. But maybe there's something in curries. Nope, there's only one option there's only one option for you to use oils on curries, and it's exactly the Draught Katsu curry. No, it's actually not too bad.
That one's not that bad.
Yeah, it's 10 sausage, 5 oil. If you are running 5 Spheal, you're doing it wrong. You're not going to be getting any of your ingredients consistently.
Although it does have a couple Spheals plus a Charmander on curry week, knock yourself out. But the Spheals don't really offer much.
It's just wrong too. Like, there's no reason to run Spheals over basically anything else. They're just like less good mons. They are rust berries and berry mons, which is notable. Mm-hmm. But if you really just want to have a high a high berry return, you should just keep farming rats until you get a berry specialist, until you get a berry finding S ratata, and that's going to give you so much more than any pile of fields will get you. Honestly, it'll get you more consistent apples. Who cares, right?
So people are talking about the 5 ingredient magnet thing. I think the issue with the consistency with that,
so every time you pop
exists.
Sorry.
Actually, you know what? This is something that I feel like would have to get mathed out.
I've mathed out a chunk of this before, but the problem is we don't know what the rate of skills are yet. But ingredient magnets will give you, at level 1, because this is different when you get higher levels, but at level 1, gives you 6 ingredients, and each of those ingredients are randomly chosen of all ingredients you've unlocked. I'm going to assume you have all the ingredients unlocked that are the early game free ones. So that's everything except potato, mushroom, leek tail are the ones that we're excluding.
Also, that means they all trigger once a day.
Yeah, so if they all trigger once a day, there are 11 ingredients. So every time you pop 6 times 5 is 30, you're getting, on average, air quotes, about 3 of every ingredient every day. That's not enough for you to make any recipe even close to consistent.
That's like a meal every other day.
No, not even, depending on the week. If you're doing, if you're on curries, you get, you make the dry Kaltu curry once every 3 days.
But you can do sausage or milk on top.
Not on curries.
For the basic ones. If you're getting sausage or milk off the ingredient magnets, you can do the 6 sausage or 6 milk. But that's still every other day.
If you're rolling for that, it's so there are some options where you could possibly roll into a lucky recipe, but it's
or honey curry also exists.
It's
it exists, but
it's RNG and you're not getting there consistently.
Yeah, that's the issue. Even let's just say you always get 3 or more of one of those. You're getting a meal. You're getting 3 meals every other day. You're gonna get a honey, a milk, and a bean dish every other day. If you're always getting 3 or more on average, which you're gonna get, or if you're always getting 3 or more, and you're gonna get less than that sometimes.
I'm gonna do a brief calculation right now. 2.5 plus 1 divided by 2. So 2.5 plus 1 divided by 2 is 1.75. Times 16 hours plus 8 hours means you get about 36 hours, air quotes, of your frequency every day. That's about what you're looking at, because I just did the calculation according to the 2.5 down to 1 energy kind of thing that we've seen right now. So 36 every day, that's kind of what you're looking at in terms of things, which means your spheals, if you go look up, what's the frequency of spheal, to give it an idea. Spheal is oh god, that's a bad... Let's even say you have a wall rain. For the sake of argument, you have a wall rain. 36 hours divided by 5 over 6 gives you get 43 pulls a day times 0.3. You'll get 13 ingredients a day. So you're getting 13 oils that are going towards nothing and 30 other ingredients that are randomizing going elsewise. You're getting all of that 13 there is assuming that because you're not an ingredient mon, blah 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 blah. You don't have anything that favors ingredients, because I assume you wouldn't, because it'd be stupid to. But if you have an ingredient mon that has an ingredient up thing, and it's it's ingredient focus mon, you'll get that 30 of actually directly useful ingredients every single time. If you have a ratata, you're still getting that 13. But you're getting apples every single day, which means you will always be able to make an apple recipe every single day off of 2 ratata is what I'm doing the calculation here. 2 ratata will always get you enough to be able to create the 3 fancy apple meals a day.
You might be able to scuff it by with 5 wool rains with the ingredient magnet 3, or preferably getting them all up to 6. But that's also a lot of work, way more work than anybody really should do.
I can totally understand why at some point in the future, if you have, for some friggin' stupid reason,
5 berry finder wall rains.
5 berry finder wall rains that all have, a level... I mean, if not berry finder, if you just have 5 wall rains with, level 4 or 5 ingredient magnet, then you can kind of get there. You can get there. If 2 is good enough, then 2 rats, 3 spheals seems good. What are people's obsession with spheal? Spheal sucks. Just don't do spheal. Spheal gives you nothing.
If you have a good spheal, run that single good spheal on your team. Don't, go for multiple spheals, though. They do not stack well at all.
Spheals are just bad. They're one of the worst ingredient magnet ones, honestly.
And like Wolverine's not that bad as a Wolverine, but Spiel itself is actually pretty garbage.
Oil is higher value than apple. No, it doesn't. The strict numerical amount value of the cost of the ingredient is not about the value of the ingredient. An ingredient's value is relative to how useful it is in the recipes you can make it. You're not going to be overflowing every single one of your recipes with all of your leftover apples and oils. If you're doing that, you're making a mistake. You should really only be doing that in this case with like bean sausage and cacao, because everything else you could be using in future weeks as well. If you're doing like a hard sprint up, you're going to be dumping everything into there. Even still, Rat is going to have I believe Rat actually does have a better recipe, a better frequency overall. Yeah, it's you got eradicate at 53 minutes by the time that you get a Celio, which is an hour 6.
Rain, which is 33.
Yeah, it has a pretty good carry capacity. It's got other good ingredients beyond that, and it's got charge energy, which every time it pops is going to keep its energy high, and you're able to sleep with a really high sneaky snacking, which because it's higher energy, you're going to consistently have that high. Instead of having 36 a day, you might end up able to get like 50 hours worth of things a day, which is like you're getting like 50% more ingredients. That's going to be huge. You're going to get so much more with Rattata overall.
Your dishes, not relying on RNG.
Like oil is only a little bit better than apples if you look at the strict numbers behind them. It's like what, 110, 120.
Like I said earlier, for that one salad team, I think you want a Spiel for that. Or if you have a really good Spiel, you could run a Spiel as like your fed Pokemon slot. You're not going to hurt yourself really. But yeah, do not stack Spiels. Spiel stacking is not great at all.
Anyways, I think that's a good way to call it for today. Long story short, hoorah, hoorah, join the rat cult. Thank you for watching. I hope you guys have all enjoyed. Do you have anything you want to say to close off?
Not really. Cyan, Squirtles, and alligators, top, moles, lizards, and dogs.
And then
rats.
Rats.
Yep. Have a good one, you guys. I'll see you around.
Thank you all for watching episode 2 of the Napcast. We're going to hope to try doing one about every 4 weeks, every month or so. We are not going to stick that schedule. We're going to try, but we are going to horribly fail, and I hope that you all expect that we're going to fail. Yeah, I mean, we say one a month, but that doesn't mean we're actually going to succeed. We're going to try, but it all depends as to what information comes around. And yeah, well, we hope that you all enjoyed this episode.
Talking points.
Down in the description down below, you'll be able to find all of the images that we use in this episode as a reference. I want to toss it all into an Imgur album by the time that this episode goes up, so you can all follow along if you'd like and see what ingredients we're looking at. You can also go check out the Mathcord. We have we've got a spreadsheet that I'm using. The Mathcord. It's a Pokemon Sleep Mathcord spreadsheet. Pokemon Sleep Mathcord spreadsheet. Oh god, that's hard to say. Sleep Mathcord spreadsheet. And that has all the recipes and all that we're following right now. There's some inconsistencies with it that we're trying to work out. I'm also working on a mega doc that'll hopefully be up in the next week or two. I'm figuring it out up on Google Sheets so people can reference that as well. And it'll hopefully have all this information and then some. It'll be really easy for you to be able to reference a billion things off at the same time. And you'll be able to get all of this and more information all on there. Hope you guys have enjoyed. This has been episode 2 of the Napcast. Night 2, as we're calling it. Because I decided to go with some kind of cheesy colloquialism for it. Yeah, thank you all for watching. I will see you all next time. Cheers!